All right, welcome everyone to the September 11th, 2017 SIG Apps. Let me share the agenda with everybody. I will go ahead and drop that into chat here so you can see what we're going to talk about today. So before we get into demos or anything of that nature, we have a few announcements. The first one is, for anybody who didn't know, the 1.8 feature freeze has happened, and now we're looking for bugs and stability fixes. And in the near future here, we're actually going to start the 1.9 planning, so we can start planning some of that stuff, not today. The next thing that we have under the announcements is when it comes to SIG Apps related tests, the ones that are the flakiest are the stateful set ones. There is a link in the agenda to the test grid to see some of that, but it turns out that stateful sets is where we're currently flaky. So if somebody working on stateful sets has time to go take a look at that, see what issues are created, try and clean some of that up, it would be appreciated. And then the third thing we have is there's a couple of docs out that people are looking at on how we do application management in Kubernetes. And some of this came out of Brian. And so we're looking at how would you do just manage applications, which is exactly what we talk about. And so these are kind of long reads and they might be a little bit painful, but if you can take a little bit of time, anybody who's interested, and read them and provide feedback or thoughts, it would be appreciated and useful. And with that, that's all I've got today for any kind of announcements. Does anybody have anything else?
Hey, yes. Can you hear me okay?
Oh, you're muted.
How about now?
Oh,
How about now? No? Can you hear me okay? If I speak a little louder?
Yep, I can hear you. Okay.
Okay, great. There might be a little background noise, but quick question about the code freeze. So I found a bug in one of the Helm PRs that I made that's in 2.6. It's, well, you could consider it a bug, or maybe just changing it might be a feature request, and I'm not really sure which it falls under. It's about deleting the ability to delete a key, a values key, through Helm with the null value. With the null value. That does not properly work for structs. So I would have, interestingly, that was my main reason for doing it. But when we wrote the test, we just wrote a relatively simple test that worked fine. And I think I unfortunately assumed that that would descend to all of its children. That's not the case when it's a struct. So what would you advise for, I mean, obviously opening a new PR, but what would you advise for defining that as? Would that be considered fixing a bug fix since it's already a feature in there but it doesn't fully work, or would that be considered a feature request, like a new feature because it's a slight enhancement to what's there?
That's a really good question. I personally would probably put that in as a bug fix, but I would go just ask in the Helm issue queue, or they have a meeting on Thursdays where they get together to talk about this stuff, and you can bring it up there as well.
On the Thursday meeting, okay.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with that feature. This is Adam here. I'm one of the Helm maintainers. So the Helm project is not under feature freeze. If that's what you're, freeze. If that's what you're concerned about, it's only Kubernetes.
Oh, you're talking about, okay. So this might not be the best place to bring it up then. Yeah, I was referring to, I heard feature freeze. Thanks.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, that's a great thing to bring up. This is Kubernetes, not the supporting projects. Those may have their own schedules, and Helm has its own schedule. All right. And so with that, I guess we can move on to the demos. And the first one is of Kubernetes, the functions as a service. Adnan Yan?
Hey, yeah, I am on.
Floor is yours.
Cool, thanks. Yeah, so first of all, the demo is of a chart repository being run by Kubernetes. And I'm going to quickly talk about how chart repositories work in Helm, because I'm not sure that everyone is aware of how that works. So basically, the architecture of it is very simple. you have an HTTP server, whether it's backed by a storage bucket like S3 or Google Cloud Storage, but all it needs to serve is an index.yaml file, which is something that Helm will generate for you. And this is a list of all the charts that are in the repository with a URL to the actual chart package for the Helm tool to actually go and download. Now, Helm doesn't give you an easy automated way to build a chart repository. You kind of have to do it on your own. The only thing it does give you is a command to generate this index for you based on some chart tables that you package. So I was thinking about this, and I thought there must be a much easier way to automate whenever you add a chart table to a repository or a bucket. It would be nice if there was something running that could pick that change up, regenerate the index, and go and upload that index again. So that's kind of what I've built with Kubeless, which is the functions as a service platform for Kubernetes, as Matt said. So I'll just go ahead and share my screen here. So if you haven't heard of Kubeless, you can find it over at github.com/kubeless/kubeless. And it's pretty easy to install. All you need to do is run these commands here. I've actually got it already installed on my box. So if I Kubeless, sorry. So it installs this into its own namespace called Kubeless here. So I've got that running here. And there's also a functions repository. So if I go to this one here, similar to the, I guess like the charts repo, there's like a functions repository here where you can see example functions for Kubeless and go ahead and install them. And I've just contributed this. It's in a pull request right now, so it should be there soon. This charts repo function. So if I go to the docs here, it's pretty easy to get up and running. The first thing you need to do is create a topic to listen on, and this is using Kubeless's Kafka backend. So I'm creating a topic here called charts. I've already done this, so I'll skip over that step. Then the next thing I'm going to do is install install Minio. And the reason I'm using Minio is because it integrates really nicely with Kafka here. I just point it to the Kafka running on my own cluster in the Kubeless namespace here, and tell it the topic to use, and it'll go and send events to that Kafka topic. If you haven't heard of Minio before, it's kind of like an S3 clone. So I'll go ahead and install this here. Sorry, was that someone asking a question? No, I wasn't sure. Whenever I'm screen sharing, things seem to take 5 times longer to run, so might have to wait a little bit here. In the meantime, does anyone have any questions? Looks like there's some questions in the chat. Okay, so Minio's been installed here, and the next thing I'm going to do is add it to my local Minio client. So we'll have to wait for the service here to get an IP address.
I definitely have questions, by the way. I just assume that they're going to be covered, so I'm going to hang tight with them.
Sure, okay.
Yeah.
Well, feel free to ask in the meantime. Given that we have to. Actually, I decided to not use Minikube to make sure that this goes faster, but it's still a bit slow.
Good.
Yeah. All right, so I have an IP address. I can go ahead and add this host here. I haven't configured Minio with any specific secret key, so I'm just using the defaults here that the chart generates for me. And then I'm going to go ahead and create my bucket. So it's mcmb my Minio charts, and because I need to access this over HTTP, I'm going to give it the download policy. So this allows me to just read from the chart repo. And I'll also set up events on this. So this is just saying for this bucket. Can everyone see this okay, by the way? I hope it's big enough.
I can, yeah.
Cool. So this is just adding the Kafka event and on put. So when things are added to the bucket with the suffix .tgz, which is the chart package extension. And then now that we have that, we can actually go and deploy our kubeless function. So I'll quickly show you what this looks like. I won't go into too much detail of how it works. You can look at the code later and figure that out yourself. But effectively, it connects to Minio. It does a Helm install here, and it listens to. So that the handler gets run. It's just a function that gets run every time there's a message on that topic, and Minio is sending out those messages. It then goes and downloads that chart package, and then processes it and updates the index.yaml file. So pretty simple. So I'll go ahead and deploy this now. And one thing I need to provide here is the repository URL, which I'll set to this here. And I think everything else looks good. So then we'll just wait for this to get running here. Oh, it is, cool. Let's just tail the logs here. So it's just started up, it's just printing out the function so I can see it. You can also see it's installed Helm here as well. So now I have a bunch of charts here. What I want to do is add them up to my bucket. So up Redis here. Oops. And Minio also has a nice user interface, so we can actually log into that. If I go to this URL here, and so you can see I have my charts bucket here. It's still taking ages to push this up for some reason.
I have a quick question, and then while you're...
Sure, yeah.
So if I'm getting this right, I'm seeing kubeless functions repo as something similar to Google's functions or Lambda, AWS Lambda or something like that. Is this a similar paradigm?
Yeah, definitely, exactly.
Okay.
So yeah, it follows the same paradigm as Lambda, and actually I think it uses a very similar CLI interface as well. Yeah, the idea is just to provide a similar function as a service platform on top of Kubernetes.
Right, something that's native.
Exactly, yeah.
Or a cluster deployable. Cool, thank you.
Right, yeah, and then if that way you're not tied to Google Cloud Functions or AWS Lambda in particular. Sorry?
I just said multi-platform or platform agnostic.
Exactly, yeah. You can, as long as you're running Kubernetes, you can move it about. Okay, so I basically just uploaded this Redis table here, and I've already got this index. So yeah, man, you can see it was kind of generated at the same time. So now I'll add this to my I'll add this as a Helm repo. So it's my minio, and we'll copy the URL from here. / charts. Whoops. And then if I do a Helm repo update, we hopefully will see that Redis is in there, and I can also go ahead and install it as well. And there we go. So likely in a CI, I'll probably have a bunch of charts that I want to upload at some time. So I'll probably do something like to minios charts. And if I go to the logs here, I should see that that's going to process each of them in order sequentially, so that we don't have any collisions with the index or YAML, and we do get everything in that repo. So now if I do another Helm repo update, whoops, we'll see all those charts in there. And that's what I have. Yeah, so it's you can see it's a really simple idea, and it could even be implemented on AWS Lambda or Google Cloud functions, you know, with the S3 or with Google Cloud Storage buckets as well. So it's just a very basic idea of how you might want to manage a chart repository. It obviously doesn't go further than that and add things like authentication and authorization, which I guess we'll see next with the Quay app registry, but it gives you a kind of simple idea of how this could be managed.
So if I understand this right, what you have is you push a chart up into the bucket catching the .tgz suffix on the name fires off an event into Kafka. That Kafka event is then picked up by Kubeless that says, oh, I know I'm supposed to fire off this function for it. It fires off the function that picks up the packages and regenerates the index.yaml file that Helm knows how to read. Is that right?
Exactly, yeah, you summed it up for me brilliantly.
Quick question, Ednan. I like that summary too, by the way. Do you foresee making a version of this that does take advantage of the Helm application registry model as opposed to the charts repo model?
So I'm not quite sure. Not really.
Well,
so are you asking that whether something like this could work with the Quay app registry?
Yeah, not Quay per se. If I'm understanding it correctly, Helm's app registry, or I'm sorry, the app registry isn't specific to Quay. Quay is just I think maybe the only main implementation of it right now. But
yeah, so yeah,
it could be implemented.
Yeah.
It could be implemented separately, but it's just a different model than the charts repo. I believe this is modeled on the charts repo, and the other is just another way of doing it that's more more pluggable. And I was just curious if you foresaw maybe doing another demo of this that took advantage of that second model. In some way, I haven't looked into how you could do that yet.
So I think we'll actually see this with the next demo. I think Antoine's going to do a demo of app registry, and what you'll find is app registry isn't limited by the index.yaml requirement that Helm chart repos have. So app registry instead provides an API that will then give you the latest version of that chart, because it is a server in itself. It's not just a simple bucket with an index YAML file.
Yeah,
but you'll see this with the next demo.
Yeah, and I think a good way to look at it is the way that's natively built into Helm and then the app registry are kind of two different models. The Helm methodology is built around the way something like Debian packages work, where the model with the app registry that you see in Quay and things like that appears to be a little bit more similar to something like a Docker Hub model of doing things. And so they're slightly different models.
I would love it if we had time at the end to discuss some of the pros and cons after the demos.
Well,
I don't know,
the discussion topic today is how to run a private chart repository, so we probably will.
Okay, great. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, exactly. No, that was the main goal of this meeting. I think just discussing what options are available, what things you can do with chart repos, and what you can't do, and just seeing what makes sense for people. So yeah, great questions. And I think I'll pass it on to Antoine then.
Antoine, are you there and ready and prepared?
Yeah, I'm here.
Floor is yours.
Okay, cool. Thank you for the demo, Alan. So yes, I'll follow up on with App Registry. I think Jimmy is here also. I can just interrupt if things are not clear. So App Registry is another implementation to push chart. Actually, let me share my screen. I have a few. Okay. Do you see it?
I do. Thank you.
Okay. Where I am. Too much things here. Okay. So I have a couple of slides just to go through why we build App Registry. So first, it can give you like a release platform for configuration on Kubernetes, like Regen, PyPy. So it's really a way to cut releases and push them. And it does not intend to replace source control manager like Git. And we still there was like a couple of discussion on SIG Apps about this. So we still recommend to manage and develop your resource through Git, and then push them to a platform to release. As you say, Matt, it's been built like based on Docker like user experience, and so we are used to App Registry login, push, pull, etc. So few feature we don't get on Git. So first, also it's agnostic on the format, so it does not handle only chart. It can be KSONET or any other kind of package format that we can see in the future. It's a way also to audit logs, know what's going on, who deploy your application, how many times, etc. On Git, you can discover easily. It's like for source code, so here it adds a way to browse and search your packages to create like a specific Kubernetes app store. It's very, so the idea of releases is like it's immutable, and it's based either on semantic versioning, or you can address also content through digest. One other thing is like version query. We can see that, but on Git, most repo is like multi-chart repo, and make it very complex to say to use the tag mechanism to say I want this version, particular version, versions up to 4.5, for example. Also part I think is very interesting in App Registry is the concept of channels. We introduced it, so you can say this version point to the channel alpha, beta. So the idea behind that is like you can create an operator or a client that say I want to deploy the latest stable version and upgrade through that point. And the app maintainer can just say the last stable is a .21, etc. And as a user, I just trust the app maintainer to point to a stable version. Yes, we use the Docker user experience. And one thing also besides Git is like we build really focus on Kubernetes, so we can just index metadata of a chart.yaml or anything we can normalize, etc. So we can browse by auto, maintainer, etc. So we can think of features that are very much more specific to Kubernetes that we can have on Git. And there is many other features. Mostly I listed around security. So we can have signing up. You can sign application before deployment and check on this. And as you know, on Quay, for example, there is like vulnerability detection on image, but then we can just inspect the resources and find the image and propagate this information to the application level. Yeah, so a quick note about the Helm workflow Adnan described. So it's complex to manage all the version. There is no discovery. And one thing that people have been reported that App Registry solve is particularly in the CI/CD use case. So in Helm, you need to regenerate the index on the client side. So basically, if you have two jobs that are doing this at the same time, they will just overwrite each other. And App Registry solves that, like we say, in a very easy way by having a central server to generate this index. So a user puts a chart, the server updates the index, and the chart is available. That's very basic, but it solves quite some issue with the current workflow in Helm. Yeah. So behind App Registry, one of the ideas is like to unify this kind of workflow. That could be in Compose with a K, KSonnet, or Helm. We developed a plugin, but etc. So the idea is like we really have like one store or application storage for all kind of Kubernetes application. Okay, we'll try to do a short demo to see how to use it. So I will show you through the Helm plugin. So there is like a App Registry command line tool, and we created also a plugin that uses it. So it's quite easy to install. It's just using Helm plugin fetch. Okay, let's go there. So I say you can search, I don't know, let's say for Jenkins and say on which registry you want to search, for example. So discoverability, I say, so you can find different things. So here I'm using Quay.io, but as Scott said, it's open source, so Quay is just an implementation, and actually just using the open source you can find in Git. So you can just run your own registry. I think it's already running somewhere. Yeah. So the command is just mregistry run server, so but you can do it through a pod or on your cluster. What you don't get is just authentication and audit for now, but more or less like the model of Docker registry. Okay, let's go back to the M registry. I will show you a few commands. For example, if I want to pull this, will be just pull. And say the chart I want to pull. I can say a particular version if I want. And that's it. Okay, so here it just download from the server the chart. And so here comes the things that are different. For example, if I want to edit the chart, let's say I update a version. So this can be made through your CI. I can make this available for everyone by just say mregistry push, Quay.io, and which namespace I want to push. And now you see, say, I've pushed this package. Of course, we try to get immutable releases. So if I push again, we say you can't, basically. It's already pushed. So two jobs can push at the same time. And also you can secure user to say, one version can't change, basically. Okay. And we can inspect for particular chart every version we have, the DJs, we can provide DJs, etc. I will just show you quickly the Quay interface. So we have a discussion like this is one, I said, one implementation, but this can be implemented also in different UI, like monocular, etc. Everything is open. So I really invite everyone to comment on the API and spec, so we can progress on this topic. So you say here the version I just pulled. And yeah, so this is a channel, for example, the table point to the 030. So if I want to pull the, let's say I will show you the install command here. So the install command or upgrade command is it's very basic. It just pulls the package as we see and send it to the minstall upstream minstall command. So we can use every flag from minstall. It's exactly the same minstall, but it just fetches the chart from the registry. Yeah. And that is. So you see, at no moment I never use the index.yml, the upstream one. It's never locally. I have nothing. I didn't fetch any repo or synchronize anything. It's all server side. So every client at the same time gets the same version everywhere. So it's very easy to be sure that you get the latest version and push and build CI pipeline, because each client doesn't have any state anymore. Yeah. So I think this is basically the demo. Do you have any question, or should I investigate more on some feature?
Just one thing I wanted to note here is I just wanted to say that Antoine and I have been talking about a monocular integration as well. So, and hopefully, you know, we may even have a POC of that in the next couple of weeks. So I think that'd be really cool to see as well.
Yeah.
I have a quick question. I posted it in the chat though. Also, Adnan, that sounds really amazing. I would love to see that. My question is just about Helm registry and upgrading a chart, upgrading a deploy. I mean, how would one do that? Because my early tests, I've been hosting some charts on Quay, and my earlier tests in attempting to upgrade have all pretty much failed. So I've kind of backed down and then just done a local chart deploy rather than the registry to do that. Is there a better way?
By upgrade, you say push a new chart to the registry, or upgrade a chart you deployed? Sorry,
I was on mute. Sorry. For deploy, yeah. So I understand how to deal with the registry changes and all of that, but if the equivalent of Helm upgrade, essentially, is there something like that?
Yeah. So there is registry upgrade. So I say the install and upgrade command are very it's basic, like, so it just use the upstream Helm install and upgrade. So it's exactly the same options and Helm upgrade.
I see. I will then file an issue in that case.
so I know, like, previous version was so let's try to just upgrade the one I tried to deploy here. I think I need the name. Where do I find the name? Here. So let's say I want the 0. So we deployed, I think, the 0.3.3. No, namespace demo, and I think this is how you say I want to upgrade a particular release. And
I think you need to provide the release name before the chart.
So at the end, I provide the release name. Yeah, sorry, I need to forward the call off. But as you say, it just say I'm going to use this chart, and after that, it's just all the Helm flag and command.
And if I remember right, what happens when you do an upgrade is it downloads the chart, and then it essentially passes everything directly into the Helm upgrade command. Is that right?
Yes, exactly.
I think you need to drop Jenkins from the end of that release name.
Okay, sorry, I'm not like
no worries.
Helm user. Yeah, looks better. Yeah, that is. So really, it's
okay, cool.
You just download the table and pass it to the Helm install or Helm upgrade.
Gotcha. Thank you.
One quickly, another feature also I want to show is like the requirement.yml. So we have like some spec to in the requirement.yml you can point to directly to the registry. So it look like app, and then you can say name, and you can find and you can specify things you want. Stable, for example. So it's like the M dependency file, but there is a new key named app R, and you can define the different version you want here. So we fetch all of them and use M dependency. Okay. Another question or things you want to clarify?
I know that the Helm dependency supports different protocols. So I think there's different protocols implemented. For example, this file to point to a relative like file path. Could app registry also be implemented as a different protocol?
So there is an open issue about that. So yes, Helm implemented like plugin for fetching different protocol, but it's only for the M fetch. So I created a plugin for M fetch something. So this will work, but it's not yet working in the requirement.yml. So there is an issue open about that.
Okay, cool.
So the thing like you see, it's more or less a temporary workaround until this is implemented in Helm. But really when I say I would like this to be more upstream or more integrated, this would be great to not have to use the plugins through the registry install, but directly do something like that. So I'm going to use the app registry protocol and even trigger the plugin, etc.
Does app registry do? Sorry, I don't know if I'm.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, does app registry do anything different with dependencies? So with Helm, for example, what you're supposed to do is fetch all the dependencies beforehand and then package and then push it up, basically render the dependencies in. Does app registry follow the same model, or could app registry resolve dependencies when you do a Helm fetch or a Helm install?
So currently, I say it's like a small implementation. I really wait for M to implement upstream. So what it does, it downloads the tarball in a directory and write and use then the official M dependencies. So it's a two-step thing. I'm not sure if I'm clear, but it just downloads the tarball, put them in a directory, and then list all of them in the dependencies.
Okay, yeah. So it sounds like it's just the same model that Helm uses. Really, it's just putting it in that charts subdirectory.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
So I had a question kind of on a different vein. I think you said that when you step outside of Quay, you don't have authentication when you use the app registry. Is that right?
Yes, this is right.
Are there any plans in the roadmap to add authentication to the self-hosted registry?
So currently, the self-hosted registry just use like generate an index on file system or using etcd or Redis. So there is like no proper database. Say like Postgres or.
Okay.
There is item for that first, and yeah, we can. It can be upstream in the source code. If there is a demand or contribution about that.
All right. Thank you. Are there any other questions around the app registry demo? This was great. Thank you. Did you have anything else, Antoine?
No, I'm good.
All right, great. So then we roll into the discussion topic. So we saw a little bit about using Helm's core feature, and you can have your own registry. And then we talked about the app registry, which is implemented in Quay. So now we are looking to just kind of have an open discussion on how to run a private chart repository. Right, you've got your charts for your applications. You're using charts, maybe Helm to manage your flow of deploying things. What do you use? How do you use it? Things like that. What are the options? So we looked at too, there's your own charts repository that's using the Helm setup, or Helm can generate the index YAML file for you, and you can do something like that. Or there's using app registry. Those are kind of the two choices we tend to talk about. Does anybody know of any other choices?
Well, I think
everything in Git, right? That's always an option.
Yeah, in fact, that's what we do. And mainly the choices that I've tried to make is to take seriously what was said on past calls for the charts, the Helm and charts development calls. That stable charts are meant to be production worthy, or enterprise production worthy even, or small scale. So if there's a feature missing in a stable chart, what I've tried to do is open PR for that, so that we can continue to use stable charts as opposed to our own custom ones, and then we just put the thinnest layer that we can on top of that. That's been our main way of doing it.
So are you then not using charts in Helm for your own custom applications, or are you doing that?
Honestly, we definitely are using custom charts. But that's more of a lift and shift model where we're just getting it up as fast as we can in order to try to get our infrastructure or other things onto Helm so that they can be packaged properly. But then as we are able, we try to look for the deltas and say, is that application, does it already have a stable chart? If so, why can't we use that stable chart? What would we need to add in a generic way to allow us to use it too? And then we migrate from there.
And for your custom applications, do you have something you could talk about how you're hosting those charts?
Right now in Quay. That's our ideal, not ideal, but that is our current charted path, so to speak. But we're definitely really open to these other ways of doing it, and very interested in how else to do it.
All right. Does anybody else have any other ways besides the app registry, which is what Quay does, and then the typical Helm chart setup?
Over here at Center for Open Science, we just took a really basic approach initially, and just were using Travis and some shell scripts to do the Helm repo index and all that, and then push it up to GitHub pages, and eventually abandoned that because Travis, our builds back up because we have so much stuff running on there all the time, and just did it the same thing essentially with Jenkins, but it's just really a really simple shell script. I can put a link in the chat for it.
Thanks.
Yeah, Ticketmaster, we are simply using an AWS S3 bucket to store our charts, and then we push to that chart and pull from it through GitLab CI with the same workflow that we use in the community repo. Just Helm packaging, and then indexing, and then pushing both files back up to the bucket, and then pulling from that location as well. We are looking at, in fact, we are already using Quay's app registry for a couple of our open source, public charts like the ALB ingress controller. We are very interested in deploying Quay EE. We are Tectonic users, so we're very interested in deploying Quay Enterprise Edition privately, and then kind of evaluating that for use instead of the S3 route. But we haven't really gotten there yet.
Mike, out of curiosity, what do you do for authentication for that S3 bucket? Is it only accessible for your CI?
Authentic what now?
Authentication.
Yeah, it's purely it's not exposed outside of our AWS and kind of direct connect topology.
Cool. Yeah, I don't think S3 offers any other level of security. I guess there are signed requests you can make, but that doesn't really work with chart repos.
Exactly. We've kind of we've kind of made it work, but it's not what I would consider ideal, certainly from a security standpoint.
So to jump ahead here a little bit, because somebody asked the question, what should chart repos look like in Helm 3? And you bring up the idea of security, and there's these different models. Does anybody have any feedback in what they would like different in charts? Because I've noticed there's varying practices here. So I would say, asking the question like, what are good practices? I see a number of varying practices. And we're trying to solve similar problems, but sometimes we've got differences. Is there anything, and maybe think about that, like what good practices versus what you wish you could do if things were a little different? Any input?
So, yeah, I'll quickly add some because I actually added that. So what I would like to see for Helm 3 is for us to kind of move down a registry model and kind of make, whether it's app registry or something else, make that kind of part of core and have a real option for that. Because whilst the current way we're doing things with the index.yaml, kind of follows what we've learned from apt-get and yum, I don't think it's the same use case as something like app and yum. So I think a registry-like option will work better going forward.
Yeah, I think the index.yaml approach, while very very simple, it has is also kind of dangerous. It's pretty easy for to stomp on that index.yaml file or overwrite it completely. So, and I will say one of the reasons we're so interested in app registry is because of the idea of channels. Being able to have a stable channel and an unstable channel, or a beta channel, to be able to publish to each and promote between them, and then deploy from each channel to our respective clusters. I think that has a lot of potential there.
I would like to ask how what the best path forward is for tying a registry, for making a registry discoverable. And I say that because Quay is a really great tool, but we have charts, infrastructure charts for a reason. There are centralized services are great. Decentralized ones are great too in their own ways, and it would be wonderful, I think, to have a chart registry chart, if that's not too much inception.
Yeah, it would be awesome if you could just deploy something to your cluster and that would just turn into a chart repository, and if that even came with a UI, maybe it's something that we could integrate, something that you can just easily integrate with Monocular, and then you have a UI plus chart repository just kind of out of the box.
The exact same thing. Yeah, that would be amazing. In fact, it could be. Yeah.
From my point, obviously I would like for V3 to see app registry more this version or another version, the default. What's the best path to go through? So currently, for example, app registry just live in a separate organization. Should we try to incubate it, or how can be more close to the community and find a way to be upstream in Helm or be used?
So the Helm folks have an incubation process, and now there's the Kubernetes Helm org. It's probably worth asking questions around that and taking a look at, is this worth getting into that incubation process and seeing where it goes from there?
Yeah, I completely agree. I think that's something that it would be cool to discuss at a future Helm dev meeting.
All right, so it seems like there's a bit of interest in app registry compared to the traditional Helm way of doing it. Is there anybody who disagrees with that, who thinks, you know what, I'd like the way Helm does it, more apt-get Debian style compared to the registry? I'm curious because I hear some pull in one direction. I'm curious if anybody wants to give a counter argument to that. All right, I guess silence means there isn't that much interest in it. Okay, that's a pretty good indicator, actually. So thank you. If somebody wants to disagree offline or doesn't have, I see Matt Fisher doesn't have strong opinions, but if anybody has any opinions offline, I'd appreciate hearing that. I think this is a good thing to feed back into the Helm folks as well. So.
Yeah, there's not many of us Helm folks on the call. I will actually say one pro that for the current model is that it is just very simple to set up, and it's a small pro, but I think it is, if you're just playing with it and trying it out, it can be a lot simpler than having to set up a server and effectively a registry for this.
So since this appears to be a little dead in the water direction, I do have a question on best practices. I'm curious how different folks do this. So you've got charts and you've got it in your CI and maybe even in your CD setup, right? And so a change comes in and now you've got a new image tag for your application and you're going to update your chart to correspond to that image tag because you don't just want to use latest, right? Because who knows what latest is going to be. You want to tightly couple them. How are you tagging things? Are you using semantic versioning? Are you using SHA hashes? Are you using dates? Are you using some combination of them? And how do you actually go about updating the chart? Are you actually just manually like using sed and some other bash script things to update the tag in the chart before you push it? I'm kind of curious, what are people doing? Because I've heard a number of different ways on this particular part.
Yeah, I'll go. More often than not, we leave the tag either defaulted to some value, or we leave it unset altogether, and then either set it directly from the command line using --set, or if we maintain separate values files for each release, we'll set it in that file.
So when you have to do something like a rollback, do you just set it to a different tag then when you do the rollback rather than have a pinned chart?
I don't know that we've ever done a rollback. I think we always roll forward.
Okay.
Yeah, and I just want to weigh in on that one. I'm in the same boat as Michael. We're very new to this on the production level. And right now, actually only our infrastructure, more and more of our infrastructure is being deployed to Kubernetes on charts, not our public-facing projects yet, although I believe that's pretty quickly coming. And we've been thinking a lot about this as how will we be handling rollbacks. I think part of the problem is some applications, I think it depends on the application. Some have specific requirements for rollbacks. If you know what I mean, especially stateful applications. And in that way, we probably, at least until we have a better process, plan to follow our older model where we, have a database snapshot registry and then we just restore. I'm not sure Helm or charts can solve that problem. I guess is what I'm trying to say. Until the applications themselves become more native to this way of doing things.
Mm-hmm.
You could always do a thing where you always move forward. And if you're using app registry, you could have like a temporary channel, which is like currently trying to roll back this thing. And it's not a public channel. It's not what other people are using. It's just for your production instance and temporarily. So you get to the next stable version that actually fixes the problem. and then you can revert back into like a normal stable channel or beta channel.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Well, we are almost at the end of our time. Did anyone have any last-minute questions, comments, anything?
I did have one last-minute question kind of going on from what we were talking about. How do people actually version their charts, not just the images that go in them? Because this is something that has come up in the Kubernetes charts repo quite a bit, and we've been kind of slowly trying to make people version charts separately to the application versions, and then have a separate app version field just for the application version. But yeah, I was curious how other people are doing it.
Yeah, I often the same question, like how you distinguish the version of your package and the application inside your package. Like how I use it is put the version of the chart, same as the application if possible, and then just doing dash the version of the chart. So I iterate. So for my application 1.2, I'm doing one release of the chart and -1, -2, -3. And
yeah. So the issue with the dash approach is that you then kind of go away from Semver.
Yeah. So
actually, that's not true. That's not fully true. Semver actually defines an extension for you to be able to do that. For example, how we version Tectonic at CoreOS is still semantic versioning. We just use the Kubernetes version, then dash Tectonic.1 or .2, and that still is actually fully like regex compatible.
Well, yeah, those are considered pre-release tags, though, not actual release tags under semantic versioning. And a whole bunch of tooling out there says, oh, these are pre-releases, which means they're not considered API compatible with it. And so it gets a little funky under semantic versioning for that.
Right, it's actually a plus. If you use a plus, then it's arbitrary.
Yeah, because that's considered a build tag, and that's ignored by tools that look for version ranges.
Correct.
Matt knows this very well because he wrote the Semver library.
I've done a lot of Semver stuff.
Yeah, so there is a build tag. I wasn't sure if the build tag was actually. It sounds like it's just ignored, and does it actually sort by the build tag as well, or is that up to the implementation of Semver?
It's actually, according to the spec, it's basically ignored for anything else. It's extra information about the build rather than anything else.
So it wouldn't be reliable to use for a version?
No, it wouldn't. The way I had done it in the past is I would do the chart configuration separately from the application and semantically version that, because your configuration could radically iterate over time. I mean, let's just take a simple WordPress setup, right? You've got WordPress, you've got your database, maybe you make a major change to the way you're doing your chart, but yet your WordPress versions and your database versions don't change, but you've come up with a better way to do the chart. It's kind of versioning configuration separately. That's the way I had done it. I don't know if it's better or worse, but.
Yeah, that's kind of what we've been going with in Kubernetes charts. A lot of people come to us and say that they want to see the application version more than the actual chart version. But there are those times when you want to see the chart version, when something important changes, like there's a bug fix in the way ingress is configured, for example, and you need to, an operator needs to know that version has been updated and roll that new version out. So
Yeah, and I'll give you a practical example in the charts repo. There's some things in the charts stable repo that don't work in 1.7 right now because of things that had to do with feature changes and things like that. And you might upgrade the chart to fix all of those things, but your application versions don't change at all.
Would a separate field solve this, like app version and chart version?
Yeah, so that's exactly why we added the app version field. I'm not sure if everyone has moved over to the app version field. The other issue with app version is the Helm CLI doesn't expose it. So if you do a Helm search, you're not going to see the app version. You're only going to see the chart version. But that's certainly something that we probably should add to the Helm CLI and make that more exposed. And I think that probably is the best way going forward.
All right, folks. Well, we're 2 minutes past. Thank you for such a healthy conversation. I've seen most folks have dropped off probably because they've got the next round of meetings to get to. So I'm going to cut it off here. Folks, thank you everyone for coming and having such a great conversation today. And with that,
thanks, Matt.